Welcome to the Full Moon Film Buff, episode 152. We're going to talk about Big Bad Wolf from 2006. I watched this on YouTube. I had not seen this before. As always, we start with the prominent crew and cast. You can also find links to a more complete credit list in the show notes. This film was written and directed by Lance W. Dreesen. Special effects makeup was done by James Ohala, representing Autonomous FX. Lance Dreesen had a short career writing and directing horror films before pivoting to feel-good family and Christmas movies. James Ohala got his start on the TV series Angel and Firefly and worked on Troma films. Notable films in his career include X-Men: The Last Stand in 2006 and Tron Legacy in 2010. He's got another film we will eventually get to when Alma and the Wolf is released later this year. The cast includes Trevor Duke Moretz as Derek Cowley, Kimberly J. Brown as Samantha Marsh, Richard Tyson as Mitch Toblet, Christopher Shire as Charlie Cowley, and David Naughton makes a cameo as Sheriff Reuben. Trevor Duke Moretz had a short acting career and has since moved into producing. His early career helped get his younger sister, Chloe Grace Moretz, interested in acting. Kimberly Brown began acting at 5. She is most well known for her role in the Disney Channel Halloween Town movies. Richard Tyson has the longest career of any cast member. He's most well known for 3 O'Clock High in 1987, Kindergarten Cop in 1990, and Black Hawk Down in 2001. However, most of his roles have been in smaller budget films. But Christopher Shire is pretty close. He got his start doing mostly TV guest spots. He got regular roles on Whistler in 2006 and V in 2009. Notable film roles include Along Came a Spider, The Core, and J. Edgar. Now, we covered David Naughton when we discussed An American Werewolf in London. Now, I don't recommend this film. It's for hardcore werewolf and film enthusiasts only. It's a low-budget, direct-to-video affair that mixes comedy with horror pretty unevenly. While it offers some interesting werewolf mythology tweaks that we will discuss, its gratuitous nudity, uneven tone, and sometimes questionable effects make it difficult to recommend broadly. That said, the film does have a cult following for its unusual approach to the werewolf subgenre. So let's cover the synopsis. While hunting in the jungle of Cameroon, Scott Cowley makes a radio contact with his brother Charlie, whose guide is missing. The call is interrupted by horrific sounds suggesting an animal attack, and Scott sets out to help, only to become prey himself. The werewolf rips Scott's leg right off. 7 years later, Charlie's nephew Derek lives with his mom, Gwen, and his emotionally abusive stepfather, Mitch. Derek takes advantage of Mitch's work trip to use a remote cabin for a weekend party with 4 college classmates. He also brings along his longtime crush, Sam. Now, Sam is not an obvious fit with the rest of the crew. Sam fixes Clint Howard's truck on the side of the road. Clint reluctantly gives the crew directions, but tells them they really don't want to go up there. The full moon is up by the time they do get to the cabin. 2 of the college students go outside for some midnight sex. The other just makes out because she's holding out for marriage. Sam explicitly tells Derek that he is in the friend zone. The 2 college kids in the woods are attacked and brutally killed by the werewolf. The werewolf can talk and is not just a killer, but a cruel sadist. It rapes one girl before slitting her throat. It castrates the dude and lets him bleed out. Derek and Sam barely manage to escape. Fearing that they won't be believed, the pair lie and tell Sheriff David Naughton that they didn't see the attacker. Mitch picks Derek up from the police station and tells him that his actions make him responsible for this massacre. Sam suspects that Mitch is the werewolf and urges Derek to look for proof. Mitch's calendar shows that he always has a reason to be out of town on the full moon. Oh, and Mitch is the kind of guy who sleeps with a loaded pistol under his pillow. Sam comes up with a plan to check Mitch's back for wounds, but finds nothing. But we see his eyes change. Things get tense when Derek tries to defend his mom. Derek learns Mitch's first wife was killed by a wild animal attack that Mitch barely survived. Derek is now dreaming that Mitch is the werewolf. Uncle Charlie pays a surprise visit, and we sort out the family relations. Scott was Derek's dad. Derek and Sam confide in him and are surprised to find out that he believes them. Charlie explains that he believed the werewolf in Cameroon was Mitch, as Mitch was obsessed with Gwen, which is Derek's mom. Charlie feels they need DNA evidence to compare to a hair sample he kept from the werewolf before they can deal with Mitch. Sam and Derek try to collect a sample from his hairbrush. Mitch catches Sam snooping in his room and forces her into oral sex, which provides the DNA sample that she needs. Mitch stalks Charlie and overhears about the DNA test. He almost transforms in a park bathroom out of anger. Romance blossoms between Sam and Derek. Mitch steals the package addressed to Charlie and finds the results inside. When Charlie tries to recover the results, Mitch abducts him and reveals that he can shapeshift at will without having to rely on the full moon. Mitch brutally kills Charlie, saying it is his fault for not minding his own business. Now, Derek gets the DNA report via email and learns about the source of the DNA sample, putting a strain on his relationship with Sam. Derek's mother, Gwen, decides that it's time to leave Mitch. Derek confronts Mitch about Charlie's death. In retaliation, Mitch kidnaps Sam and demands that Derek meet him at the cabin alone. Derek arrives to find another group of youths exploring the site, which is now notorious as the scene of a massacre. Mitch transforms, attacks, and tortures them one by one until Derek and Sam remain. They fight Mitch with silver steak knives and arrows and eventually set him on fire, burning down the cabin in the process. After escaping, Derek and Sam embrace, but Mitch survives long enough to inflict a final bite on his stepson. As Mitch dies, he tells Derek the curse is now his. Sam assuages Derek's fears with a promise to stick by him whatever happens, and they drive off together on her motorcycle. In a post-credits scene, Mitch is shown moving his fingers slightly. This film's budget constraints are evident in the transformation sequences and the makeup job, which is a real shame. The werewolf design in Big Bad Wolf is a practical effect. The werewolf itself is a furry bipedal human with a full wolf head. It's clear the filmmakers wanted to maintain some of the actor's facial features, allowing for the unique element of the werewolf speaking and expressing emotions, which would have served the film's notion that the werewolf retains human consciousness and personality. The werewolf's ability to speak and taunt victims gives it a more sadistic edge than many werewolf depictions, but the makeup just does not work well enough to carry that weight. The transformation scene is early 2000s CGI and is even worse than the makeup job. But like I said, Big Bad Wolf does put some interesting twists on werewolf mythology. The most significant departure is that Mitch retains his human consciousness and personality while transformed, using his werewolf form as an outlet for his sadistic tendencies. This creates a monster that is both a beast and a calculating human predator. I'm left wondering which came first. Was Mitch a sadist and abuser before he was infected with lycanthropy, and the beast just gave him more power to express these already existing tendencies? Or was Mitch a good man, and the werewolf slowly poisoned his mind and soul with its dark and twisted desires? We don't have nearly enough information in the film to answer that question. The film also introduces the concept of cycles of abuse, as it ends with the lycanthropic curse being passed on to Derek. When he transforms under the next full moon, is this the first step of him becoming Mitch's shadow? Other than these alterations, the film sticks pretty close to the core cinematic lycanthropic lore. Mitch can only be truly hurt and killed by silver weapons and fire. The lunar cycle still does play a role, but the film allows Mitch to have gained some control over his transformations through experience, which is an interesting extension of standard werewolf lore. It means Mitch isn't just suffering under an uncontrollable curse, though his calendar does suggest that he has to transform under the full moon. But Mitch has fully embraced the wolf inside him. So let's explore abuse. Big Bad Wolf uses its werewolf premise to explore the many faces of abuse. While on the surface, this is a monster movie, the film's supernatural transformation becomes a metaphor for how abusers operate and the cyclical nature of their violence. The central antagonist, Mitchell Toblet, embodies the archetypal abuser in human and werewolf forms. As a human, he maintains a respectable public persona while privately terrorizing his family. He psychologically dominates his wife, keeping her financially dependent and emotionally isolated. With his stepson Derek, he establishes a power dynamic that's built on fear and humiliation rather than respect. What makes the film's metaphor particularly effective is how Toblet's transformation works. Unlike traditional werewolf stories, where the beast represents an uncontrollable other self, Toblet maintains full consciousness as a werewolf. The monster doesn't replace the man, it amplifies him. His transformations aren't bound by lunar cycles, but are entirely his choice, suggesting that abuse is deliberate rather than an uncontrollable impulse. The werewolf's ability to speak, which is unusual in werewolf mythology, emphasizes that the monster is simply Toblet without moral constraints. He taunts his victims, prolonging their suffering for his own amusement. This mirrors the psychological component of abuse, where humiliation and fear become tools of control. Just as human Toblet derives pleasure from others' discomfort, werewolf Toblet revels in their terror before delivering violence. Toblet's supernatural strength makes him nearly invulnerable, allowing him to act with impunity. His ability to permanently silence victims by killing them parallels how real abusers work to ensure their victims can't testify against them through threats, manipulation, or violence if necessary. The fact that few people believe in werewolves mirrors society's frequent unwillingness to believe victims of powerful abusers. The film presents a devastating portrait of a family fractured by abuse. Derek's relationship with his mother illustrates the dynamics of abusive households. Her inability to protect her son speaks to secondary victimization, where one victim becomes complicit in abusing another due to fear or manipulation. Derek must confront not only an abusive stepfather, but also the pain of having a mother who chooses her abuser over her child's well-being for most of the film. Perhaps most disturbingly, the film explores how abusive behaviors can be transmitted across generations. The werewolf curse serves as a literal manifestation of this cycle here. When Toblot attempts to pass his curse to Derek through a bite, it represents how victims of abuse sometimes become abusers themselves. However, the film avoids a simplistic portrayal here by showing that Derek's struggling against this inheritance. His resistance represents the conscious choice victims must make to break cycles of abuse. The film suggests that while trauma can certainly be passed down, it's not inevitably perpetuated. Agency and choice remain possible, but difficult. While werewolf attacks provide the film's graphic violence, Big Bad Wolf recognizes that abuse exists on a spectrum, including psychological, emotional, and financial control. Toblot's human interactions demonstrate these subtler forms through manipulative language, economic dominance, and systematic undermining of Derek's confidence. The film shows how these less visible forms often precede and then enable the physical violence, establishing conditions that allow extreme actions to continue unchallenged. Big Bad Wolf isn't a particularly good film, but it uses horror elements to meaningfully examine abuse. Through its werewolf metaphor, it illustrates how abusers operate, the protection that their power affords them, and the devastation that they cause within families, and the potential for cycles of abuse to be either perpetuated or broken. Another way Big Bad Wolf distinguishes itself is through its uncomfortable exploration of sexual predation and sadistic violence. What makes this werewolf film notable is that its monster doesn't kill from instinct. He terrorizes and humiliates his victims, revealing distinctly human forms of cruelty beneath his monstrous exterior. Traditional werewolf narratives frame violence as animalistic instinct. The beast kills because it's in its nature. It's the uncaring kill of the carnivore. It's not personal. The predator doesn't hate its prey. The shark in Jaws bears no malice towards Amity's residents. The wolf doesn't hate the deer. Big Bad Wolf ignores this trope entirely. Mitch Toblot's werewolf exhibits violence that transcends mere predation. His attacks aren't driven by hunger or survival, but by a deeply human desire to dominate, humiliate, and terrorize. And this distinction is crucial. These behaviors are extensions of human cruelty given physical form. While traditional werewolves lose themselves to their animal instinct, Toblot maintains his human consciousness. His sadism is an expression of his actual character, and not an imposed monstrous nature. The film's portrayal shows how sexual violence functions as an expression of power rather than desire. Toblot combines psychological intimidation with physical threats, mirroring real-world sexual predator tactics. The werewolf form serves as a metaphor for the overwhelming physical advantage that enables assault, while his taunting dialogue represents the psychological component, the desire to not just physically violate, but to emotionally devastate. However, the film's treatment reflects problematic elements common in horror, where female victimization was presented with voyeuristic camera work that inadvertently replicated the predatory gaze it ostensibly condemned. One particularly troubling scene expects audiences to simultaneously sympathize with the victim, be aroused by her nudity, and find werewolf sexuality amusing. Real tonal whiplash that has aged poorly. The film illustrates Toblot's sadism in several key ways. Rather than killing efficiently, he extends victims' suffering through injuries that ensure slow, painful death. His unusual ability to speak allows psychological torture through taunts, threats, and cruel humor. He frequently pauses to observe suffering, demonstrating sadism's voyeuristic aspects. Most tellingly, he ensures victims know he's there before attacking and that they're going to die. These elements establish Toblot not simply as a monster, but specifically as a sadist whose violence serves psychological gratification rather than any biological necessity. His werewolf form becomes the means through which sadistic impulses can be expressed without societal constraint. The decision to create a talking werewolf serves a specific narrative function. Traditional silent werewolves represent pure animal instinct, but Toblot's speech enables distinctly human cruelty and verbal sadism. His one-liners and taunts reminded me of Freddy Krueger, where darkly comedic dialogue personalizes violence. This comparison feels intentional, Both antagonists use humor, not to lighten their violence, but to deepen its psychological impact. The cruel joke becomes another weapon, turning the victim's terror into entertainment and transforming impersonal violence into intimate violation. The victim isn't just attacked, but mocked during their most vulnerable moments. I said it before, Big Bad Wolf isn't a great film, but it's clear that an effort was made. Its portrayal of sadism as distinctly human rather than animal provides insight into how monstrous metaphors can illuminate the darkest aspects of human behavior. This fusion of physical monstrosity with human cruelty creates a villain who transcends simple categories. While the film fails to fully develop its themes, it still offers a disturbing window into anxieties around sexual violence and sadistic behavior. So, if you like lycanthropes, like, share, and subscribe. Contribute your thoughts and additional observations in the comments below. Let me know what I missed or what you noticed. Next, I plan on discussing Mexican Werewolf in Texas from 2005. Keep your eye on the moon, a silver bullet in the chamber, and we'll see you back next episode.